On May 5, 1927, Albert Einstein walked into the National Academy of Sciences with a paper that could have rewritten everything we thought we knew about reality. He presented it to his colleagues. He was ready to publish it. And then, something happened. Einstein himself withdrew the paper. He never published it. For almost 70 years, nobody even knew this paper existed. What did Einstein discover that was so dangerous that he had to hide it from the world? In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the discoveries Einstein made that were never published. The 12 pages found near his deathbed, filled with equations that no one has fully deciphered. The manuscript from 1938. That sat in the Library of Congress for decades, without anyone understanding why Einstein wrote it. And the lost page, finally discovered in 2019. That solved a puzzle researchers had struggled with for 90 years. If you're watching this, you're different. You don't accept the official version. You question what they taught you in school. And you're about to understand why. Let's start with what they tell you about Einstein. The official story is simple. Einstein was a genius physicist. He discovered relativity. He won the Nobel Prize. He moved to America. He worked at Princeton until he died in 1955. End of story. But here's what they don't tell you. From the 1920s until his death, Einstein was obsessed with something. A theory so profound and so dangerous that he spent 30 years trying to complete it. A theory that would unify all the forces of the universe into one elegant equation. They call it the unified field theory. But that name hides what Einstein was really looking for. He was trying to find the mathematical proof. That consciousness creates reality. You heard that right. The greatest physicist who ever lived spent the last 3 decades of his life trying to prove that your mind shapes the physical world around you. And here's the terrifying part. He found evidence multiple times, and every single time, he either withdrew the paper himself or the work was buried. After his death, let me tell you about the first time of May 5, 1927. Einstein presented a paper at the National Academy of Sciences. The title translated to, "Does Schrödinger's wave mechanics fully determine the motion of a system, or just statistically?" What Einstein proposed in that paper shocked everyone. He created what scientists now call a hidden variable theory, a mathematical framework, proving that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that there was something deeper beneath the randomness, something deterministic, something that connected all particles in the universe. The paper was accepted for publication in the Academy Journal, and then Einstein withdrew it. Why? According to the official explanation, Einstein discovered a flaw in his mathematics. But here's what they don't tell you. The flaw Einstein discovered was not a mistake. It was a feature. His equations showed that particles separated by vast distances could influence each other instantly. That what you do to one particle here, say, affects another particle on the other side of the universe. Immediately. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. Now think about what that means. If you observe a particle here, in your laboratory, something happens to its partner particle, instantly. Not at the speed of light, instantly. Across any distance, across the entire universe. The mathematics was undeniable. Einstein had proven it himself, and this violated everything physics believed at the time. Nothing was supposed to travel faster than light. Nothing was supposed to be connected across vast distances without some kind of signal passing between them. But Einstein's equations showed something different. They showed a universe that was fundamentally interconnected at its deepest level. And he realized something terrifying. If his theory was correct, then the universe was not made of separate parts. Everything was connected. And the observer, the one measuring the particle, was part of that connection. Your consciousness, would literally be entangled with the fabric of reality itself. Now stop for a moment and think about the implications. If Einstein had published that paper in 1927, the entire scientific establishment would have had to accept that consciousness plays a fundamental role in physics. Instead, he withdrew it. And for nearly 70 years, that paper was forgotten. It was only rediscovered in the 1990s by historians going through Einstein's archives. A paper by Darin Belusek in 1996, titled Einstein's 1927 Unpublished Hidden Variable Theory, brought it back to light. But by then, the scientific establishment had already decided that consciousness had nothing to do with physics. Convenient timing, don't you think? Here's something else they never mention. In October 1927, just 5 months after Einstein withdrew his paper, the 5th Solvay Conference took place in Belgium. This was the most important physics conference of the 20th century. Every major physicist was there. Bohr, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, Dirac, Pauli, and Einstein. At this conference, a French physicist named Louis de Broglie presented his own version of a hidden variable theory, similar to what Einstein had proposed. The response from the physics establishment was hostile. De Broglie was mocked. His ideas were dismissed. He eventually abandoned the theory entirely. Einstein watched this happen. He had just withdrawn his own similar paper, months earlier. Do you think that was a coincidence? Einstein saw what happened to de Broglie, and he knew. Any theory that challenged the randomness of quantum mechanics would be attacked. Any physicist who suggested consciousness played a role would be marginalized. So Einstein went underground. He kept working, but he stopped publishing. But Einstein did not stop there. He kept working, and in 1938, something strange happened. Einstein wrote a 12-page manuscript. He titled it simply, Unified Field Theory. No subtitle, no additional description, just those 3 words. He had his secretary, Helen Dukas, type up a copy. Then he sent the original to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. He never published it. He never talked about it publicly. He just sent it to the Library of Congress and moved on. For decades, that manuscript sat in the archives. Researchers knew it existed, but nobody understood why Einstein wrote it, or why he never published it. According to a 2021 study, published in the journal History of Science, this Washington manuscript sheds light both on Einstein's way of working, as well as on the public role of his later work. But what the study also revealed was more interesting. The Albert Einstein Archives at Hebrew University has 2 identical Xerox copies of a 15-page typescript version. The handwritten equations were added by Einstein himself. So Einstein wrote 12 pages, then he expanded it to 15 pages, then he made copies, then he sent the original to Washington, and then he buried it. Why create something so carefully, only to hide it? What was in those pages? The manuscript describes a mathematical framework for unifying gravity and electromagnetism. But more importantly, it describes how fields interact with matter. And here is the key. In Einstein's framework, the field is not separate from the objects it affects. The field and matter are 2 aspects of the same underlying reality. This sounds abstract. Let me make it concrete. If you push a ball across a table, you think you are a separate thing pushing another separate thing. In Einstein's hidden framework, you and the ball and the push are all expressions of the same field. Your intention to move the ball couch is not separate from the ball's movement. Your consciousness and physical reality are mathematically entangled. This is the discovery Einstein buried, not once, but multiple times, and he was not done. If you have stayed with me this far, you are not just watching a video, you are seeking truth. That 99% of people will never know. You question the official narrative, You sense that something profound has been hidden. In a moment, I will reveal what was found on Einstein's deathbed, 12 pages of equations that he was still working on in his final hours. But first, let me tell you about something that happened in 2019. On March 14th, 2019, Hebrew University in Jerusalem announced a discovery. They had acquired 110 new pages of Einstein documents from a private collector in North Carolina. Among those pages was something researchers had been searching for since 1930, a missing page for nearly 90 years. Researchers had copies of an 8-page appendix to one of Einstein's unified field theory papers, but one page was missing. It was a puzzle that nobody could solve. And suddenly, in 2019, that exact page appeared in the newly acquired collection. Dr. Ronnie Gross, the curator of the Einstein archives, said, and I quote, "To our surprise, to our delight, that page is now here." What was on that page? Equations connecting the geometry of space-time to the behavior of electromagnetic fields. Equations that suggested physical reality could be shaped by mathematical principles that we are only beginning to understand. For 90 years, that page was hidden in a private collection. Nobody knows who bought it originally. Nobody knows why it was separated from the rest of the appendix, but now it is back. The collection also contained personal letters that had never been seen before. In one letter from 1935, Einstein wrote to his son, Albert Jr., about the rising Nazi threat. He expressed fears about what was happening in Europe, but he also wrote about his work. He told his son that he was pursuing something important, something that the physics community did not understand, something that would take decades to be appreciated. He was right, and it took nearly 90 years for those documents to resurface to us. The question is, why was it separated in the first place? Who took that specific page? And what else from Einstein's archives might still be hidden in private collections around the world? Now let me take you to April 1955. Einstein was 76 years old. He had been working on unified field theory for 30 years. He knew he was dying. One day at his office at Princeton, he felt a terrible pain in his stomach. An aneurysm was rupturing. He was taken to Princeton Hospital, and he made one request. He asked for paper and pencils so he could continue working on his equations. On April 18th, 1955, Einstein died. By his bed, they found 12 pages of tightly written equations, covered in cross-outs and corrections. These were his final thoughts, his last attempt to crack the code of the universe. The nurses later reported that Einstein was calm. He knew death was coming, but he refused to stop working. He told them he was close to something he had been chasing for 30 years. What was he so close to discovering? Now here is where it gets strange. After Einstein died, his brain was removed without permission by the pathologist who performed the autopsy. Thomas Harvey took Einstein's brain and kept it for decades. Why would someone steal a dead man's brain? The official explanation is that Harvey wanted to study it, to understand what made Einstein a genius. But think about this. Einstein had been working on equations that connected consciousness to physical reality. Equations that suggested the mind could influence matter. And then his brain was taken and hidden away for 40 years. Coincidence? The Albert Einstein Archives has digitized these pages. They call them the last writing pad. Archival reference 3-12. Anyone can view them online at Albert Einstein info. But here is what nobody tells you. Those 12 pages have never been fully analyzed. The equations are incomplete, the mathematics is dense, and the scientific establishment has shown remarkably little interest in deciphering what the greatest physicist of the 20th century was trying to tell us in his final hours. Think about that. If you had 12 pages of unfinished equations from Einstein, would you not want to know what he was trying to discover? Would you not dedicate resources to understanding his final thoughts? Instead, those pages sit in an archive, digitized but not decoded, available but ignored. Why? Maybe because those equations point to something the establishment does not want to acknowledge. Something about the connection between consciousness and reality. Something Einstein spent 30 years pursuing. Something he tried to publish in 1927 and withdrew. Something he wrote about in 1938 and buried. Something he was still working on in his final breath in 2024. Princeton University Press released Volume 17 of the collected papers of Albert Einstein. This volume covers the years 1929 to 1930. Among the documents was a notebook. A notebook containing Einstein's ideas and elaborations of what he called the teleparallel theory, a variant of his unified field theory. The researchers who analyzed it found something fascinating. The notebook documents many doubts and false starts. Einstein was struggling. He was hitting walls, but he never gave up. And more importantly, the notebook helped researchers piece together fragments and drafts of papers he intended to publish, but never did. How many more notebooks are out there? How many more fragments? How much of Einstein's true work has never seen the light of day? Here is another piece of the puzzle. In 1952, a physicist named Daniel Harrison published a paper that essentially recreated Einstein's 1927 hidden variable theory. Harrison did not know about Einstein's withdrawn paper. He came up with the same ideas independently. What happened to Harrison? He was accused of being a communist. He was forced to leave the United States. He spent the rest of his career in exile, first in Brazil, then in Israel, finally in England. His theory was ignored by mainstream physics for decades. Sound familiar? Anyone who tried to prove what Einstein had discovered in 1927 was systematically marginalized. De Broglie, Bohm, and Einstein himself. Three brilliant physicists. Three similar theories, all suppressed. Let me tell you what I believe happened. Einstein discovered something profound about the nature of reality. Something that connected physics to consciousness. Something that would have overturned the materialist worldview that dominates science. He tried to publish it in 1927. He withdrew it because the implications were too radical. He kept working. He wrote manuscripts. He hid them in archives. He discussed these ideas only in private letters. Letters where he wrote about cosmic religious feeling and the connection between spirit and matter. And when he died, the establishment breathed a sigh of relief. They could keep teaching physics, as if consciousness did not matter, as if the observer was separate from the observed, as if you were just a random arrangement of atoms with no special significance. Think about what they teach you in school. You are told that the universe is a machine, that it follows mechanical laws, that you are just a spectator watching it unfold, that your thoughts and intentions have no effect on physical reality. This is the exact opposite of what Einstein discovered, and it is not a coincidence that this worldview keeps you passive, keeps you believing that you have no power, keeps you depending on experts and institutions to tell you what is real. Einstein knew better, and he paid the price for that knowledge. But Einstein's papers are still there. His equations are still waiting, and maybe, just maybe, someone is going to decode them. Someone who is not afraid of what they might find. Someone who questions the official version. Someone like you. If this revelation has opened your eyes to what has been hidden, then I want to share something with you. This channel exists because some of us refuse to accept the sanitized version of history. Every video I create takes hours of research into primary sources, documents that most people never access, letters that were never meant to be public. When you click the Super Thanks button, you are not just supporting a channel. You are taking a stand. You are saying, I want the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I want to know what Einstein really discovered. That button is your way of joining a community of seekers, People who know that the official story is never the complete story. Now let me tell you what Einstein really discovered, what all these hidden papers point to. Einstein found mathematical evidence that the universe is not made of separate things, that every particle, every field, every force is connected at the deepest level. He called it unified field theory, but a better name would be the mathematics of oneness. In this framework, your consciousness is not produced by your brain. Your consciousness is part of the field itself. You are not observing reality from outside. You are participating in reality from within. This is why Einstein withdrew his 1927 paper. His equations showed that the act of observation changes the thing being observed, not because of any physical interaction, but because the observer and the observed are mathematically entangled. They are two expressions of the same underlying reality. This is also why Einstein famously said, "God does not play dice." He was not making a statement about religion. He was making a statement about the deterministic nature of consciousness in shaping reality. If consciousness and physical reality are entangled, then nothing is truly random. Everything follows from the unified field. Your thoughts and your intention, your observations, they all participate in the unfolding of the universe. The dice are not random. They are you. This changes everything we think we know about reality. If Einstein was right, then the universe is not a machine that runs independently of us. It is a participatory reality, a reality that responds to consciousness, a reality that you are actively creating through your observations and intentions. This is not mysticism. This is what Einstein's mathematics showed, and this is exactly what the scientific establishment does not want you to believe. Because if consciousness creates reality, then you have power, real power, power that cannot be measured or controlled, power that threatens every institution, that relies on making you feel small and insignificant. In 1944, Max Planck, the father of quantum mechanics, gave a speech where he said something extraordinary. He said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness." Max Planck, the man who started quantum physics, saying consciousness is more fundamental than matter. Einstein knew Planck well. They were colleagues and friends. Did Planck know what Einstein had discovered? Did they discuss it privately? We may never know. But the fact that both of them pointed to consciousness as fundamental is no coincidence. Einstein spent 30 years trying to prove this mathematically. He got close, multiple times, but every time he approached the answer, something stopped him. Maybe he stopped himself because the implications were too terrifying. Or maybe others stopped him because the implications threatened their power. Either way, the work was buried. But the truth cannot stay buried forever. The 12 pages at Einstein's deathbed are still there. The Washington manuscript is still there. The lost page is back where it belongs. And one day, someone is going to put all the pieces together. When that happens, everything will change. What do you think Einstein discovered? Do you believe his work was deliberately hidden? Or do you think I am exaggerating? I want to know your honest opinion. Comment truth if you believe Einstein found something they did not want us to know. Comment lies if you think this is all speculation. Either way, I want to hear your thoughts. The debate is what matters. The questions are what push us forward. I personally read every comment in the first couple of hours. And if you found value in this video, subscribe and turn on notifications. There are more discoveries to reveal, more buried papers to uncover, more truths that they do not want you to know. Einstein died with 12 pages of unfinished equations right by his side. He spent 30 years chasing something he could never quite grasp. Or maybe he grasped it and simply chose not to share it. Either way, his work is still waiting. The archives are open. The truth is there for those willing to look. Are you willing? Let me leave you with one final thought. In 1950, Einstein wrote a letter to a grieving father, a father who had lost his son. In that letter, Einstein wrote something truly remarkable. He said that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Think about what that means. The greatest physicist who ever lived, telling you that time itself is an illusion. That the past and future exist simultaneously with the present. That what we experience once as the flow of time is just a limitation of our perception. If time is an illusion, then Einstein's discoveries are not buried in the past. They exist now, in this moment, waiting to be found. His 12 deathbed pages, his withdrawn 1927 paper, his 1938 Washington manuscript, the lost page recovered in 2019. They are all there, not in the past, but in an eternal now, that we can access whenever we choose to look. Einstein was not just a physicist, he was a prophet who saw something about the nature of reality that we are only now beginning to understand. His papers are not just historical documents. They are messages from a man who knew more than he could say publicly. And those messages are waiting for you. This is the truth. They never wanted you to know. Einstein made his most important discovery, and it was never published until now. The truth is finally emerging, and nothing can stop it. Welcome to the awakening. Einstein would be proud.